The forces of light will eventually overcome those of darkness, and truth will always prevail over falsehood.
Hello, viewers. Welcome to the Voice of UPSA Courtroom Series. My name is Princess Diana, and I'll be your host for today. With me, I have three wonderful gentlemen from the UPSA Law School, and I'll have them introduce themselves and tell us what they have for us today. So, over to you.
Hi, I'm Siri Kutniak. With me is
Mark Aduti, level 300. I'm Inshore Champon, level 300 lawsuits.
So our topic for today is protest, police, and the law. So quick, we'll take it from here. So one may ask, what's the definition of protest in itself? So basically, protest is just people's public display of their disagreement or their way of expressing their disapproval with something in society. Exactly. Shall what do you think about it?
I think protest can be a way for, can be a catalyst for change actually, because you can't have a government without the people or the minority, I should say, the general public, making their views heard to government, because this can actually lead to a whole lot of stuff like changing of laws. And we all remember is it last year or last year situation where government wanted to sell Senate flats. Yes, so now it's actually because of the views of the people. That's why in some places that's why the government did not pursue the action. So protests are very, very important for in a democratic state at least.
So one may ask, what's the constitutional basis for protests in Ghana? So Article 21D specifically. So I'll read clause 1D, sorry. All persons shall have the right to, and the D says freedom of assembly, including freedom to take part in procession and demonstration. So the Constitution actually provides that we should be able to engage in demonstrations. It's our right to do so. Now, how to go about protest? That's really the question. Because
Yeah. So, in Article 19 of the EDHR, it guarantees the right to freedom of opinion and expression, including the right to hold opinions without interference. And Article 20 of the EDHR says the freedom of public peaceful assembly and association, and no one should be compelled to belong to an association. So it's guaranteeing the right of people to freedom of assembly and the right to demonstrate, right? Yeah.
Okay, so with all you've spoken about, let's take the Occupy Julobi thing for instance. Can we describe it as a protest?
Yeah, in itself it's a protest because I believe a lot of people went out on the street to display their disapproval with certain decisions of government in line with poor government administration and lack of healthcare and certain things they didn't agree with the government in power.
Okay. So you've spoken about the constitutional rights and all of that.
Exactly.
And then during most protests, people tend to go wayward, they tend to do things that destroy our property as Ghanaians.
Yeah.
How do we go about that? Or what does the constitution say about that?
So actually there's a law called the Public Order Act 491 that talks about the way people should actually protest. Yeah. And so sure.
So actually, the law he mentioned, the Public Order Act, actually talks about protests, mainly about protests. And it says, according to section 1, that when anyone wants to engage in a protest, but then interestingly, it doesn't talk about protest. It defines, it says special event. The law says special event. Special event can also include protests, processions, and demonstrations. So it actually says that in order for in order to for people to engage in a protest or for organizers to organize a protest or a demonstration, you must actually notify the police, because you don't want a situation where um people just get up and go on any protest just like that and come and destroy and vandalize properties, as you said. It will be uncalled for. So you must actually notify the police for at least 5 days. So when you notify the police, then you have the go ahead to actually engage in that protest. But then there are actually several steps, as you read in a few minutes. There are actually some subsequent parts of this particular law which we see to is that during the protests, people's rights should not be violated. So this basically seeks to protect um, the rights of various individuals, both those who are engaged in the protest and those who are not engaged in the protest. So if someone's right is being violated, the police officers can say, "No, we are not going to allow you to carry on the protest right now. I mean, it's your right, so they can't prevent you from going on the protest. But then if it's violating someone else's right, or is going to lead to a series of events which would be unlawful, the police officers have the right to make the organizers relocate
Alright.
or postpone the event to a different time
Alright.
where maybe matters would be less violent and everything.
Okay, so we'll take the Occupy Jolobi protest into consideration. The police went out and then stopped the people from protesting, if I am right. So does it mean that they did not seek the police's approval before they went out to protest?
With this case, actually, the Occupy Jolobi house case, initially, what the organizers wanted to do, what they sought to do was they wanted to protest in front of the Jubilee House. So it was supposed to be called a Jubilee House protest, right?
Yeah. Okay. So, in relation to your question, I feel like the police disallowing them from protesting at the Jubilee House is that that Jubilee House is the seat of government, and that's like actually the symbol of authority of the country, and also it's a very high security zone, and so we can't let people protest like incessantly there. So I feel like in line with what the Public Order Act was saying, they needed to actually notify the police, and if they didn't agree with that, they could tell them to postpone the event, or they could
Change
actually
the location.
relocate it. Yeah,
Alright,
exactly.
okay.
Exactly.
So that's what my colleague was saying. So yes, they notified the police. They obviously notified the police. But one thing they did wrong was that if you read the Public Order Act, the subsequent subsections, especially subsection 4 of section 1 and subsection 6, it says that if the police has any reason to believe that someone's right is going to be violated during the course of the event, or there's something unlawful going to happen, the police can tell you to postpone, as I said earlier, they can tell you to postpone the event or relocate the event to a different place. So the police asked them to relocate the event, not in front of the Jubilee House, for reasons he gave. But then the people felt like, no, because other protests have gone on there before, so why should they move to a different place? So basically, the police is saying you can be angry in public, but then it's not everywhere that you can be angry at. But then they were saying, no, we don't understand. We still want to be at the Jubilee House because other protests have gone on in the past in front of the Jubilee House. So that's what they did, and that actually led to some arrests when the protests.
Okay, so during the Occupy Jolobi protest, some citizens were arrested, and then people believe that they were manhandled. They were not handled fairly, or then I don't know. But then, what does the law say about the arrests, or what the police should do to them after they've been arrested, or how they should be treated?
That's a great question. So the law is very clear on what lawful arrest is, and it's stated in Article 14.2 of the 1992 Constitution. Could you please read it for us?
Okay, so Article 14.2 says that a person who is arrested, restricted, or detained shall be informed immediately in a language that he understands of the reasons for his arrest, restriction, or detention. and of his right to a lawyer of his choice. So basically, what the provision is saying us is that once you are arrested, you have the right to know if you can't speak English. The police must tell you in Hausa, Ga, Fanti, Tree, whatever. You must know the reason why you are being arrested or detained, and you must know of your option of a lawyer of your choice. So yes,
So from what you're saying, the police just can't come and grab you and take you to the police station in the name of arresting you. He has to tell you why he is arresting you before he takes you to the police station. Am I right?
Exactly. So if in a circumstance where the police just grabs you without following the procedure and 14-2, then that makes the arrest unlawful.
Okay, thank you.
So yes, as you guys have stated, you can't just catch Mark all of a sudden with two police officers walking here and say Mark has committed a crime.
Mm.
And you hold him and just throw him into a van and drive him to the police station. We can't just do that. So even if he's in the protest, we can't just say because he's in the protest has committed a crime. So we are holding him, handcuff him and put him into a van. Just start hitting. We can't do that. So as you said, Article 14 too talks about that talks about lawful arrest. So anything contrary to that, or anything that is against what he's saying, or that doesn't, any police officer that doesn't do that has gone against the law, and then that arrest becomes unlawful. So because of that, that arrest will not even count as an arrest. Okay. So basically also section 10 of our criminal procedure code, that's Act 30, talks about this. So this talks about arrest without a warrant. And you know, when officers arrest you, they have to have a warrant under normal circumstances. So if an officer arrests you, let's say you're engaged in a protest, Mark is in a protest, and then he's just doing what he does, what other protesting, holding placards and shouting, jumping, and all of a sudden, police officers see that no, Mark wants to steal this guy's pen. Mark wants to steal Quickly's pen. The officer at that moment does not need a warrant to arrest him because the officer has seen that he's committing a crime at that moment. That's what section 10 talks about. So if you are caught committing a crime in front of an officer and some other circumstances, you can be arrested, without a warrant and be told why you have been arrested. And yes.
Okay, so in concluding our discourse for today, I believe the right to protest is very essential in a democratic state and also enhances participation and accountability of the citizens especially minority groups. And I'll end by saying that a democracy that fears its people's voices is no democracy at all, in the sense that the law guarantees the right to protest not as a favor from the state, but as a constitutional right that must be respected. My colleague also has another.
so the great Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "Every man of humane convictions must decide on the protest that best uses convictions, but we must all protest." Right.
Thank you so much for your time, and then that was very insightful. There you have it, viewers. We've come to the end of today's courtroom series with three amazing gentlemen from the UPSA Law School. My name is Princess Diana, and I was your host for today. Do not forget to inform the police before you go out to protest. Thank you.